Hi, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the different kinds of reading formats that are out there and which one is my favorite. So there are multiple ways to read a book. You have a physical book, which could be a hardcover book or a paperback book. You could read an ebook. You could read an audiobook. There's also large font format physical books as well, but there's also subcategories of each of these formats. So for a hardcover, you could have like a standard size hardcover, but there's also a hardcover that is a little bit shorter. And I don't know if there's a different name for this, but here is an example. If you look at The Lost Story and Water Moon, the butts are in line, as you can see, but the height difference is like 2 inches. So one is taller, one is shorter. I think that out of these two formats, I prefer the shorter one because they're usually a little bit lighter and easier to hold. And some hardbacks even have deckled edges. So instead of the pages being smooth, where the pages show between the covers, they're deckled, which I would consider a different format because the reading experience of those books for me personally is vastly different because I get overstimulated by the texture. So I definitely prefer the smoother pages. Now for paperbacks, there are also different sizes of these as well. There's quite a tall, more standard, traditionally published size. And then there is a shorter size that I've noticed is usually YA is usually the shorter paperback size. And likewise, paperbacks can also be a little bit stiffer. Like see how that closed itself? A little bit stiffer in nature, or they can be literally just floppy, like floppy loosey-goosey. I definitely do prefer a loosey-goosey paperback, but I wish that the loosey-goosey paperbacks came in the smaller size, again, because it's easier to hold. I also have quite small hands, so you'll find that that is a theme with the preferences I have, is that I prefer the smaller sizes, but I do really love the floppy paperback because you can prop it open on a pillow and it will just stay there. Even if you're only at the beginning of the book, like, you know, it just makes it so much easier to read that way. Here's another comparison of paperback sizes. There can also be much smaller. So if you remember, this first book here was the smaller one that I showed you earlier. But now if you line these up, sorry, this is hard to do in midair. If you line these two paperbacks up with the smaller one from before, it is now, in fact, the taller one. I do really like this more compact size, but I will say I much prefer this like compact size versus the size of a mass market paperback, which is again another version of a paperback book, which I will insert a picture of here because I do not own any because I hate them. They are so small that the binding is just really hard to open. Like I feel like they're just cramming too much into that tiny real estate, whereas this obviously isn't that thick. And even though this one is a little stiffer, I can open this fine. I can read everything in there. I'm not like trying to, bend the spine out to see the words that are in the crack.
Say crack again.
Crack. And then again, with these other smaller ones, this is also kind of a perfect size because I can see the words without having to like really rip it open. Like in a mass market paperback, I feel like they're just cramming as many words on a page as they possibly can. Obviously, because they're trying to save on materials and make it where they can mass market it. But yeah, I definitely prefer, I really like this size of paperback and this size of paperback. But again, these ones don't usually tend to be floppy. I feel like the bigger the paperback is, the easier it is to make it a floppy paperback. And you know what? Sometimes that's fine, but I do really wish that we would get paperbacks in this size that are floppy. Although I will say this one particularly, The Daughter of Izdihar, is published by Harper Voyager. This one's not like super, I think I just saw a mosquito. This one's not super floppy, but it is a little looser in its binding than Night Bitch, which is published by Vintage. Yeah, this one's like much thicker. See how the back came up before I was even done flipping through the book. So this one would probably be easier to read than this one. And then this one would be easier to read than both of them. This one's published by Tor. Tor makes a good tall floppy paperback. I love their paperbacks because they're so floppy. So it kind of like makes me not care about how big it is as much because obviously I prefer smaller ones because again, small hands. Some paperbacks can also have something called a French flap, which is where when you open the book, there is a fold out flap which has information on it. So in most cases, a paperback would have the summary, the synopsis of the book on the back, but with a French flap, there's room for whatever else you need. This one in particular actually has the synopsis on the inside flap, and then it has like praise and stuff on the back for it. So this is probably more like to catch your eye on the shelf, and then once you're interested, you can flip it open to read the summary if you see like a favorite author or whatever on here. But I actually really like these French flaps. I think they're fun. There is another form of cover, and I'm trying to think if I have one where the front cover is kind of like two covers, and the first one is like a smidge shorter than the one underneath, and it's kind of like a peekaboo moment. Let me peek real quick and see if I also have that. I did have one. This is how you lose the time more. If you see here, this red part is actually not part of the outside cover. If you open this up, this is like a peekaboo flap. I don't actually know what this is called. I'm just going to call it the peekaboo flap because you're peeking at it. So hello, peekaboo. But yeah, this one has the main cover and the synopsis is on the back. And then there's a peekaboo of the praises and stuff for this book. This one I don't love because when I'm reading it, like I feel that. Like I can feel that. And like, you know, I like to hold the cover kind of like this when I'm reading, and like this constantly, like, I don't know, I get really aggravated about it. I'm still going to read this because I'm interested in the book, but I'm glad it's short because that feeling of like touching the two covers at once really aggravates me. I don't mind it with the French flap because it's tucked inside. So like if you have the pages between your thumb and the French flap, like I don't feel it, you know? Okay. So long story short, there are many variety of paperback books. There's also audiobooks. I don't know if there's too much variation in like the format other than the fact that some audiobooks have a single narrator, some audiobooks have a full cast narration, and some audiobooks are called graphic audio. So I guess that is 3 different formats of an audiobook. Duh, Rachel. But I actually don't kill me. I feel like a lot of people are going to get angry when I say this. I don't love a graphic audio. And the reason for that is because I am usually listening to it sped up. I'm not listening at 1 time speed. So if you put sound effects in there and you put music in there or like other like noises and stuff, like it's going to be super sped up and it's going to annoy me. And it also is distracting to me. I definitely have undiagnosed ADHD and I can't focus. I literally can't focus when there's too much going on. I do like a full cast narration depending on the genre. I don't actually love it for fantasy, and I know that might be controversial. I don't actually love a full cast narration for fantasy. I think it's probably really fun for like a mystery or for romance. If you're a romance reader, I bet having a female and a male character or a female and a female, if it's like, you know, whatever the couple pairing is, like I bet it's fun to have 2 voices for that because you kind of get each person's spin on the romance. But like, I don't know, for fantasy, I don't love it. I actually just prefer a single narrator. And then last, but certainly not least, there's ebooks. I currently have a Kobo Libra Color. I used to have a Kindle Paperwhite. I mean, the covers on the Kobo are in color, but the actual format of the book itself, like the words are fucking black and white. Like they're black and white on the Paperwhite, they're black and white on the Kobo Libra Color. So like the format of the ebook itself is literally just black and white text on a page, or if you put it in dark mode, then white text on a black page, etc. But I will say one thing I really love about ebooks is that you can customize the format however you want. On my Kobo in particular, I actually have the margins a little bit skinnier so more words can fit on the page because I have the font higher so I can read it easier because I have bad eyesight. So I have my font, like, it's not enormous. Like I've definitely used to have it bigger, but I feel like this is a comfortable enough font size for me that I can read without squinting. And also, I fit enough words on the page that I feel like I'm not hitting the button every 5 seconds because that does also annoy me, which is why I did initially lower my font after having it up high for so long. And then also on my Kobo, which I don't think you can do on the Kindle, I have the font weight up as well. Like, so basically the words are a little bit bolder. And I also have the line spacing a little bit smaller because I do have the words so big that I just smidged down the line spacing a little bit, smidged the margins down a little bit, so more of that large font could fit on the page. So basically my point is just that even though ebooks are kind of just like a one format thing, like you can customize the format of an ebook to whatever you want. I think there is definitely a time and place for all of these formats, like a hardback, a paperback, an ebook, and an audiobook. I'm not going to read all of those in every situation. So if I'm doing chores that are like kind of mindless and menial, I'll put on an audiobook. And then in that moment, that's my preferred reading method because I can't hold a book and walk around and read it while I'm also trying to do like, wash dishes or vacuum or whatever. And if I'm reading at night in the dark, it's much easier to lay on my side and turn down the brightness on my Kobo and read like with one hand and have it just be like something that's not disturbing my husband because I don't have any lights on, as well as a paperback. I think paperbacks are more easy to read when you're kind of like not really sitting in a comfortable position. So maybe if you're reading like at the DMV, like traveling with a paperback is easier because it's not as heavy, and reading it out in public when you're kind of like, there's not really space for you to sprawl out, like that's easier because it's easier to hold. It's not as heavy. You're not lugging around a fucking brick. And a nice solid hardback is always fun to read when you're just like cozied up in a cocoon and you have like a pillow on your lap or something. And you've got the book spread out, and like that's like also an enjoyable experience for me. So I feel like there is a time and a place for every single format. It just depends on your personal preferences, and also it depends on what you have access to. Okay, if I had to pick one single format that like I prefer overall, like if all of the other formats disappeared after this decision, what would I pick? I feel like my gut wants to say paperbacks, like floppy paperbacks in particular, because they're the easiest to read as far as like shelf trophies. But I also really want to say ebook. I love my Kobo literally so much. And I read on it more often than not lately. Even if I own a book, I'll get the ebook from my library so I can read the book I own without having to even like lift it off the shelf. Or if I read a book on ebook, like it's just, I don't know. I don't know. I love it. And I also love being able to adjust the size because there are definitely some fonts in books that I hate. Like there are some fonts that hurt my eyes so much, and you can't always control that. Maybe you order a book, like you pre-order a book from Barnes & Noble or like your local indie shop or whatever. You don't see the text inside before you pre-order it. So like, maybe a book shows up and it just has the worst fucking font ever, but you really want to read it. So you read it anyways and it just gives you a headache. But with an ebook, you can change the font to do whatever you want. So I don't know. Like my heart wants to say floppy paperback, but I think my heart and my head are in agreement, even though I do love a floppy paperback. I think ebooks for me, as of right now, where I'm at in my life, the headspace I'm in lately is that ebooks are just way easier for me because I can just pick, this is so lightweight. I can just pick it up, throw it in my backpack. Like I can walk around the house with it if I need to. Sometimes I do sit and eat with it because you just need one hand. Like you don't gotta worry about getting it dirty. You can have one hand allotted for your messy food and one hand allotted for reading. Like during my 24-hour readathon that I did recently, I definitely was eating meals with one hand reading and one hand eating. So I think for right now, my heart and my head are going to agree that ebooks are my favorite format. And that's crazy because there was a time in my life where I refused to read ebooks because I didn't have an e-reader at the time. I was trying to read them on my phone, and that's an awful experience in and of itself. And then I got the Kindle Paperwhite, which did ignite my love for ebooks. But the Kobo Libra color has like solidified my love of ebooks. Thank you so much for watching this extremely random video that I just thought of the other day because I was thinking about why there's so many different kinds of paperbacks. And then I was like, oh, I could make a video about all the formats that books come in. If you've made it this far in the video, leave a book stack emoji, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.